Give me a minute and let's talk about what's happening in Georgia. And so this anonymous user asked the question, Peter, have you got any information on what's happening in Georgia? And as I understand it, the situation in Georgia is violent. Police and protesters are clashing. Now, what this is about legislation, draconian Russia kind of legislation that the parliament there wants to adopt and that the people of Georgia are adamantly opposed to because it stands in their way of joining the European Union. It threatens their EU candidacy state. Now, what is this legislation? Well, for one thing, it's anti-LGBTQ. It outlaws homosexuality. Then there's the foreign agent component. And the foreign agent component targets foreigners of all types, especially NGOs working in the country on the behalf of the Georgian people, to let the government detain them at will, hold them without charge, label them as agents of foreign influence, spies, basically, right? So you say, oh, you work for UNICEF, but you know what? You're actually a spy. And we're going to outlaw your organization, ban you from the country, because we don't like the idea of children getting inoculations and food. So April 9th, as the parliament in Georgia took up this legislation, the people started to protest. And there were tens of thousands of people in the streets of Tbilisi right up until 2 nights ago when riot police came in and cracked down hard on them. Water hoses, tear gas, dogs, riot shields, rubber bullets, the whole 9 yards. And I was worried that that would be the end of it, right? That they'd quiet down. But they were back the next day. And now it is being reported by the New York Times that the crowds have swelled to hundreds of thousands. This is very reminiscent of the Maidan in 2014 when, what's his name? Poroshenko? No, that's the wrong one. I apologize. I can't remember the president of Ukraine at the time, but he sent in the troops, beat everybody up, and then the next day there were 1 million people in the Maidan. That's the kind of response that you have to get. That's the groundswell of grassroots support that you need to have if you're going to emerge out of an autocracy and forge a democracy. And the people of Georgia deserve the right to determine their own future, to determine a future for themselves in the EU rather than under the thumb of Moscow. And so the Georgia protests continue, as I understand it, and clashes with the police were for the last 2 nights extremely violent. Now we will see what happens tonight. If the reports in the New York Times are correct, and there are today hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of Tbilisi, that may well be too much for the police to handle, which is our fondest hope and wish, right? And that the people of Georgia will have a chance to be heard. The law in question has been read before the parliament and passed twice. Under Georgian law, it must be read and passed a 3rd time, so it is still not adopted as legislation. And clearly, the people of Georgia don't want it. The people in parliament better stop listening to the guys writing the checks for rubles and start listening to the people outside their doors. Because while in this photo they're all holding phones, they all own pitchforks too. I want to send a special shout out to Dark Irish, Fitz, who is the sponsor of this video. Fitz gets a video sponsorship and my personal thanks every month because, like so many other great people, he joined the Patreon. And Fitz is a good friend to this channel. I deeply appreciate all he does. I literally could not do this without him and the other Patreon supporters. So thanks, Fitz. For everybody else, if you'd like to help, if you'd like to be a supporter of this channel and get a personal thank you and shout out from me every month, join the Patreon at the Dobrovicher level or higher. And I appreciate it. Thank you.